This will be a little follow-up to a video I made before the 2019 NHL Entry Draft, just a few days before, talking about the Vancouver Canucks and a potential trade up to the 6th overall spot with the Detroit Red Wings with the intention of drafting Trevor Zegras. Now, that was a video that I made because it was kind of a circulating idea at the time, saying that the Canucks really wanted to trade up, and there was speculation amongst other people saying, hey, if they're going to trade up to 6, it means they want Zegras, right? Well, this is a little bit of a follow-up to that, because it turns out the idea and the situation was correct according to other people who had access to more rumors, but the player was wrong. The player was close, but the player was different than what we thought. This is from Cam Robinson on Dobber, July 31 and 31. This is the Vancouver Canucks edition of that little series. Going over down into this article here, we talk about the first pick that the Vancouver Canucks have in their draft, 10th overall Vasili Podkolzin. However, Cam actually writes it out like this, and he starts out the content with a little bit of a bomb here. As mentioned above, the Vancouver Canucks appeared armed and ready to either move up or move down in the first round. Rumors were abuzz that they had an arrangement with Detroit to jump up to 6th overall if Alex Turcotte was available. He was not. When their turn to select came, Podkolzin was the last in their tier, and they took him. Evidently, the organization is not afraid of the Russian factor, with Podkolzin sticking around SKA for 2 more seasons. Now that is half news and half not news. It's not news because we all kind of knew that the Canucks were willing to trade down if Podkolzin wasn't there, because the Canucks were very open about the idea that, hey, Podkolzin was the last guy that we wanted that was available, so we took him. But Alex Turcotte, had he not been taken by the LA Kings 5th overall, he would have been a Vancouver Canuck. And it's crazy to just think about the overall working cogs of this idea, because it makes sense. Taking a look at the draft, top 2, Capo Caco, Jack Hughes, then Kirby Dach went after. That was the first big shock amongst most people watching the draft. Bowen Byram, because it's Bowen Byram, he goes 4, and the Kings are poised at number 5 to either taking a guy like Turcotte, or maybe a guy like Cousins, or a guy like Broberg, or whoever. If they didn't choose Turcotte, and Turcotte was available at number 6, the Canucks would have traded up and taken Turcotte at 6, and it makes sense because Detroit went with Seider. Seider was their guy, and Seider was a guy that most people kind of thought would have been available much, much later in the draft. If they moved down to 10th overall and all the other picks stayed the way they did, it looks like a very likely option that they would have been able to get Seider at 10 while getting another asset. Now, there are 2 things that I wanted to look at first. First off, I said that Detroit could end up with Seider if all the other picks stayed the same, but there is no guarantee on that, because I was seeing somewhere, I'm not really too sure on the source, but it was an apparent rumor that the Oilers were actually going after Seider, but because he was taken earlier, they went with Broberg instead. Apparently the Oilers were really in on a defenseman, but who knows what would have happened if Seider was available at 8 and Detroit was picking at 10. Second thing I wanted to look at was, what was the trade looking like? Because we couldn't just say swap 10 for 6, the Canucks would have to add more. I was looking on Canucks Reddit, and the guys over there on our Canucks were saying that a 2nd round pick from the Vancouver Canucks in 2019 was most likely another addition into a trade with Detroit. So if you wanted to label it like that, 10th overall and 40th overall for 6, would you be willing to trade Podkolzin and Hoglander for Turcotte? Because that is a dilemma right there. Because Turcotte has such a high ceiling, but at the same time Podkolzin has such a high ceiling, and Hoglander has a good ceiling as well, that I'm not really too sure I would do that. Turcotte is amazing, he has elite potential, and he's gonna be really good in this league, but I don't know if I would have traded Podkolzin and Hoglander for him. Now, taking a look at it just at face value, 10 and 40 for 5 is a pretty okay trade from both sides. You could even argue that the Canucks would have needed to add more. But the way the picks played out, Podkolzin, Hoglander, I'm really happy with that. It's just very interesting to see that we could have had Turcotte had the Kings selected somebody else. Hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.